Shop the Sherwin-Williams Memorial Day sale and get 30% off paints and stains May 16th through the 26th. With prices starting at $34.29, it's the perfect time to transform your space with color. Whether you're looking to revamp your bedroom, living room, or home office, we have you covered with bold hues, soothing neutrals, and everything in between. Shop the sale online or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Memorial Day deals are here at Lowe's. Get up to 40% off select major appliances, including Samsung. Plus, save an extra $50 on every $500 you spend on select major appliances $396 or more, like the Samsung Bespoke French Door Refrigerator, featuring beverage center and dual ice maker. Shop at Lowe's today. We help, you save. Valid 5/15 through 6/18. Selection varies by location. Total savings varies based on purchase amount. See Lowe's.com for details.
Blog Talk Radio.
The following broadcast is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network.
Golf Talk Live is sponsored by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. Here's Andrew to tell you more about our sponsors.
iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, including reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top teaching professionals, all designed to help you improve from tee to green. Welcome to Golf Talk Live with your host, Ted Odorico. Join Ted each week as he speaks with some of the best in golf. This week's special guest will join us a bit later. But first up is another great discussion on Coach's Corner. So let's introduce tonight's Coach's Corner panel.
All right, good evening, everybody, and once again, welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and we've got a great show for you this evening. The 9th of June, we're already the first week, if you will, into the month, and on our way to, in a few weeks, officially being summer. And I know everybody's excited to especially those up in the Northeast that have been playing golf for a little bit, are excited to see what their summer swing is going to bring for them this season. So we're excited for them. And we've got a great show for you tonight. We're going to be starting off. We've got, the two Johns are going to be joining me here in just a moment on Coach's Corner panel. And then a little bit later on the show, I'm going to be joined by Kelly O'Donnell. He's the PGA Director of Golf Operations at Nemacolin Resort up in Pennsylvania. He's going to be joining me once again here on the second half of the show, so make sure you stick around for that. Let me introduce the guys, and we will bring them out and get into tonight's discussion. As I said, I've got the two Johns. First John is John Hughes. He's a PGA Master Professional and the Honorary President of the North Florida PGA Section. He was also the recipient of the 2013 PGA of America's Horton Smith Award. He's also a Senior Editor and Golf Tips Magazine Top 25 Instructor, plus part of the Golf Tips advisory staff. Also on the panel tonight is the other John, John Decker. He is the Director of Instruction at the Medallion Club in Columbus, Ohio, and he too is a Senior Editor and Top 25 Instructor and part of the advisory staff here at Golf Tips Magazine. And he was named in 2015 the Southern Ohio Teacher of the Year, and he authored the book Golf is My Life, Glorifying God Through the Game, which of course includes a Bible study. And he's done some public speaking as well. And also the book is now available as an audiobook as well as a hard copy. So if you already have that, or if you don't have the book and you want to get an audio version, he'll tell you a little bit later on in the program how you can go about doing that. So John and John, welcome to Coach's Corner here on Golf Talk Live.
Thank you, Ted.
Hi, Ted.
All right, I appreciate it. So we're going to talk about tonight, and we're going to get into quite a bit of detail on this particular discussion. As I said, everybody, particularly up in the Northeast, Northwest, if you will, certainly above the Dixie line, if you will, have thawed out, I think, for a little bit now, and they're out playing golf. And some of the folks are looking to have a really good season. Many of them are trying to break 90 this year, maybe for the first time, or consistently break 90. And we're going to go through some specific things that we're going to talk about. And then at the end, I'm going to sort of wrap it up with some tips on what you can specifically do that you should be working on through various parts of your game. So I'll sort of wrap up the discussion with that at the end. But Mr. Hughes, I'm going to start with you. And to keep it simple, I'm going to refer to you guys by your last name just to keep it simple. So overall strategy in how to break 9, and I want you guys to be specific to what I'm talking about, so don't jump ahead if you don't mind. But simply thinking differently is one way that you can reach your goal of breaking 90, without really changing your swing at all. Another way is really playing bogey golf by adding 1 to the par of every hole. So, example, establishing a new par for yourself, meaning turning a par 5 into a 6, par 4 into par 5, par 3, and, of course, into a par 4. The first part of this question is really focusing on the attitude of the individual player, and that's what I'm talking about when they're thinking differently. Most players, if they go in 90 is their goal to break for the season, if they're coming in with sort of preconceived ideas of, well, I got to do this, I got to do that, and I'm not really sure how I'm going to go about doing it, simply by changing and creating a more positive, I think, is going to help. And then the second thing, give me your thoughts on maybe adding or changing par to see if that gives them a little bit of a different focus than what they typically do. That sort of helps to take some of the pressure away. Give me your thoughts on both.
So first off, thanks, Ted, as always, for allowing me the opportunity to be on the call with you. And John, as always, it's a pleasure, always sharing some information, learning from each other. Changing par, it's certainly the most simplest way to put things together for yourself and to think of things in a way, in a manner that's obtainable is a term I'm going to use. There's other variations off of that based on the golfer's long-term goals, I may alter, such as, can we look at making no more than 5 on a par 5? But sometimes your skill level isn't ready to do that. So what you suggested, Ted, is a great way to start in that, okay, bogey golf. What does bogey golf look like? It's 1 over par for every hole. If most golf courses are par 72, we're adding 18 to that. You're right there at 90. So you're right there at the precipice of it. Can you do that consistently? And the neat thing about it is it's still going to allow for that double somewhere if you can find a par somewhere else. Is the par lucky? Potentially. But I think as you start learning to break 90 on a more consistent basis, you'll realize that you are making more skillful pars than you're realizing initially. And it provides some opportunity, a little bit of wiggle room per se, that if you have that 1 poor hole, there's not a whole lot of pressure being placed upon you, by you, to make up a stroke immediately. And I think that's really what you're after there when you're basically saying my personal par is bogey on every hole. Wow, I just made a bonus of a par, or even a better yet, a bonus of a birdie. It gives you some breathing room to make it to the end of the round and be less cognizant on the score and a little bit more aware of how you made the score at the end of the round.
Yeah, and it adds a lot more flexibility, and as you said, it gives some breathing room. You know, a lot of players, they, go to the golf course and they think 72, okay, that's par. I know I'm not going to get a 72, but, I want to do this, and they're adding up the numbers, where I think going the other way around is sort of saying, okay, I know I can bogey every hole and get 90. So even if I do no worse than bogey on every single hole, I'm going to shoot 90. So that's part way there, as you said. And the other part of the first sort of part of the question I had asked you was about really changing their thinking and simply thinking differently, as opposed to, obviously there's things in the swing that are always going to need working on, but I think sometimes just changing the attitude as opposed to always trying to manipulate the swing, especially when you're out playing. When you're out playing, forget about the swing. Just do what you've got, whatever you're bringing to the golf course that particular day. Don't start monkeying around with it then. Those are things you can do with your swing coach or your teach professional at a later date. But I think your attitude and changing the way you think coming to the golf course can certainly help get you on a good start to breaking 90. Great points that you made, and I thank you for that. All right, Mr. Decker, we're going to come to you. And I think getting the first putt, most high handicappers, are not more often than not going to get real close to the hole. So I think a good objective, because putting is obviously important, is to get it within that 3-foot circle of the hole. Obviously, you're going to try to make whatever you can along the way, but I think if you can get it within that 3-foot circle around the cup, once you're on the green, that first putt's goal will be to get the ball within that circle, and that's going to help you sort of keep things down to a 2-putt maximum. If you start getting too aggressive and you're not sort of setting a tangible goal, I think you're going to find yourself more 3-putts and beyond. Give me your thoughts here. Maybe you have a different approach, but I think sort of having that sort of intermediate goal of not necessarily just trying to make everything, but having a different target. Instead of a small cup, now you've expanded the target. Maybe 3 feet's a little bit more than what you'd like. Give me your thoughts.
Well, Ted, first of all, thank you again for having me on the show. And, John, I look forward to being on with you tonight as well. I actually do have a little bit of different perspective on this. I was always taught that you want to get it within 10% of the distance that you have the putt. So, for example, if you're 50 feet from the hole, you want to get it within 5 feet of the cup. If you're 20 feet from the hole, you want to get within 2 feet of the cup. If you're 10 feet, a foot. So, again, this goes to distance control. I understand what you're talking about, the 3-foot circle. But it's interesting, when we were at the golf schools, when I was working down in Orlando at Grand Cypress, there was some research done. One of the golf magazines came and they did some research with students, and they had them putt from about 50 feet, and they tracked all of their putts to the hole and saw the distance, the average distance that they would hit their putts. And then they put a 3-foot circle around the cup, and they actually got worse. And the reason is because the students started putting to the circle instead of putting to the cup. And your mind is very the way your mind works is your mind is very specific. Like if I was going to ask directions, to a location in town, I would want specific directions. I wouldn't want general information. I would want specific streets to take. And the more specific you can make your mind focus, I don't care whether you're a beginner or whether you're a tour player, the more specific you are, I want everyone visualizing the ball going in the hole. And I don't care, I tell them, I don't care if you're 70 feet and you got 12 mounds in front of you. If you'll visualize that path to where that ball is going in the hole, you will do much better than if you just putt to a general area. But distance control is the key to that. So I can have perfect line, but if my distance control is off, I'm going to 3 or 4 putt. So that's the whole key to it. So I totally get what you're saying with the 3-foot circle is more about the distance, but I want players to be specific, and I want them to visualize the ball going in the hole because it's amazing when you do that how often every now and then one of them will go in the hole. So it's a great topic of discussion, and hopefully the listeners out there will get something from it.
Great points, by the way. And you're right. This is not, and let me just sort of preface before we continue on, these are just general overall strategies. Some professionals like yourself, John, have found that that's not the best way to approach it, and that's fine. And I think that you're exactly right. Obviously, if you're getting directions to a location, you're going to want to be more specific. I think that the general idea here was just to give some sort of a guide to work with. And it brings me to this next question. I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Decker, if you will, talking about chipping as well. And this is sort of referencing a 6-foot, within 6 feet of the hole. So, again, I think I understand exactly the point, and I agree with you. I think you need to be more specific. But I think that the idea here is to give them some sort of a general area that if they can get it within that field or with that range, that it's going to increase the likelihood that they're going to be able to get up and down. So, again, do you take the same approach then with chipping, not having a sort of defined area, whether it be 5 feet, 6 feet, whatever number you want to use, or again, do you adopt the same strategy that you did with the putting? Is not so much have a circular area or an area as a target or an ending target, but to be more specific. Give me your thoughts on the chipping as well.
Well, chipping is with chipping, there's a couple of things that you have to look at. First of all, I mean, you could have a 70 or 80 foot chip, or you could have a 20 foot chip. Obviously, if I'm 20 feet, and I'm right off the edge of the green, I expect to get it closer than if I'm 70 or 80 feet, and that's whether you're a tour player or a beginner. I think that when it comes to chipping, I'm really consciously looking at where I leave the ball. In other words, because you're trying to get it down in 2 shots. 3 is three will not kill you, but chipping, you're right on the edge of the green. You're still trying to get it as close to the hole as possible. But you also have to think about where you leave your ball. In other words, you don't want to leave it where you have a downhill putt. So in chipping, I'm often talking to students about, let's make sure, and when we chip this shot, let's make sure and get this ball by the hole so that we leave ourselves an uphill putt, or leave it to the right or left of the hole, depending on the break in the green, so that we have an uphill putt. But when it comes to the kind of the guideline, I still kind of go with that 10% rule, because I think what it does, Ted, is it takes the pressure off of students. Because if I am 70 feet away and I say to my student, if you get this ball within 7 feet of the cup, you've hit a really good shot. That takes the pressure away. I would never tell someone you've got to get it within 2 feet of the cup to hit a good shot. But I want I want their goals to be a little better when they have a much easier shot, when they're maybe 20 or 30 feet off the green. Then I'm going to be more likely, all right, let's try to get this within 3 or 4 feet of the cup. So, I still use that number when it comes to chipping, but not in pitching and bunker. That's totally different. But in chipping and putting, I'm still using that 10% rule.
Very good points. Well said. All right, Mr. Hughes, I'm coming back to you. And this one's a little bit different, but again, we're dialing in on some numbers. And I'm going to say that they're sort of a generic approach, if you will, I guess is a better way to phrase this. But one of the things that I want to touch on as well is those approaching the green, say, within 35, 40 yards. You want to make sure that you're certainly not always going to be able to go at the pin depending on the circumstances, but you want to make sure that you don't miss the green. And it might sound like at 35 yards you're not going to, but you'd be surprised. And the idea is, because going back to the putting that we talked about a moment ago, increases your chances of just 2 putting. If you can get it within, if you're 35 to 40 yards, let's say, from the green, again, now you're going to be pitching the shot. You want to make sure that you're getting it somewhere on the green, and obviously as close as you can, but you want to increase the likelihood that you're only going to have a 2-putt, whereas if you don't get it on the green, or you get it off, then, again, you're running the risk. So give me your idea here. If you've got a short pitch shot like this, 35, 40, even if you want to go up to 50 yards is fine. What's the goal here? What's the primary goal? Is it just to get it anywhere on the green, or are you trying to be more defined? Give me your thoughts here.
Well, first, I would counsel someone trying to break 90 to avoid those shots. You avoid them by picking the right club in the fairway that gets to the green. That if you miss your hole high or pin high, you missing 40, 50 yards short is going to most likely happen on a par 5 because you decided to go for the hole and you just can't hit it long enough, that second shot, or you didn't hit your drive far enough. So with that being said, to avoid, let me rephrase it, to reach the goal of breaking 90, sometimes it's avoiding certain yardages. Now, why do you want to avoid this yardage? I call it no man's land. No man's land is the place where most people don't practice a particular shot or from a particular distance. And within 50 yards, believe it or not, pros have a difficult time. If you go to a tour event, you'll see them practice this shot all the time. It's rare that they're not. because the courses are more difficult for them, so sometimes they can be left in that situation. As far as the person trying to break 90 goes, I think you can take a normal type of chip shot, set up slightly different with a different golf club, and very much like we'll see at St. Andrews this year at the British Open, hit some bump and run shots so long as there's nothing between you and the green that allows some margin of error. And as far as you made a statement, should we just get it on the green? I think that's a goal, and certainly the primary goal if you're not practicing these shots. But if you decide, you know what, I'm going to heed John's advice, well, let me go out and practice these because I am ending up there more often. The more you're practicing these and setting up correctly, ball position, middle, not necessarily taking a 58-degree wedge, but maybe you're taking the 50-degree or even a 9-iron to hit this little bump and run up there, then can you get a little bit better with your touch? As John alluded to easier, the 10% rule, I would actually like in that situation. But therein lies you don't always have that situation. You may have to get over a bunker from 50 yards. You may have to traverse a creek or a pond from 50 yards, and that's going to call for a pitch shot. Hitting distance control wedges is something that all my clients do. I have flags up all the time for them to practice those shots, and all we're ever asking them to do is land the ball the yardage necessary. Let's not worry about the release. If you can cover the yardage that needs to be flown over and you're on the green, that in itself is going to reduce some strokes, because through the Arcos app that myself and my clients use and some other statistical platforms, what we find is from no man's land is where the majority of short game strokes happen. And just by either avoiding that situation or simplifying the situation when you're in it and making a simple goal of, hey, let's not make a perfect shot and hit it close to the flag. Let's cover the yardage we need, or let's bump and run it up there and two-putt it. That's certainly within the realm of breaking 90, playing for bogey, and it avoids the unnecessary evil of duffing a shot and hitting another duff shot and hitting a third duff shot, and then you're finally on the green, which I see quite often.
Right. Yeah, and see, that's what I'm getting at here is, I think number one, I think sort of redefining what par is for you as a golfer, and sort of alleviating that pressure is one start. But I think you also have to develop a game plan that's realistic to your level of play, because you're not always going to pull off the shots that you're needed, again, because of your skill level, and those are things that you're constantly always going to be working on. So you have to have sort of a fallback. Mr. Decker, I'm going to come back to you on this one, and this is a statement, or if you will, and I want to get your thoughts on this, how it applies to what we're talking about. And knowing my club distances, I know I'll hit a ball right or left, but there isn't any reason why I shouldn't be able to hit it hole high with clean contact if I know my distances. So obviously understanding how far you hit each club is important. And that's something that is obviously, in addition to some of the other things that we're talking about, is a must. Because it doesn't matter, even if you're hitting the ball clean, if you don't know how far you're hitting each club on average, then you're going to run into trouble somewhere. So how do we as a golfer, as a higher handicap golfer, what can we do? Give us some examples of what we can do to sort of dial in those numbers that's going to help, and what should we be really focusing on primarily to understand what our distances are going to be?
Well, Ted, this is one of my favorite parts of golf to talk about and to work with students on, and that's knowing their carry distance. What matters with your wedges and your 9-iron, from your 7-iron all the way to your lob wedge, what really matters is your carry distance. I see people all the time who say, I hit my 7-iron 150 yards, but when I watch them hit their shot, their ball is landing in front of the green and running over the green. They're not hitting a very playable trajectory. So in reality, yes, their ball ends up going 150 yards, but they're not carrying it 150 yards. They might be carrying it 135 yards. And so what I explained to them is that's fine, but you have to understand when you get on a hole and you have a 150-yard shot over water, that shot's not going to work. You're either going to have to choose another club or you're going to have to go another route. And so it's important to know the carry distance. That's the first thing. Now, how do you learn this? Well, with today's technology, it's a lot easier than it was, years ago. With the launch monitors now, it will give you your carry distance. So I would encourage you when you're taking a lesson to ask your instructor to pull out a launch monitor and you can do this maybe the last 15 minutes of the lesson. Start hitting wedges, hitting 9-irons, and start getting an average, each week, or how far are these shots going? Remember, you're most likely going to be using a range ball. So it's really beneficial if you can do this out on the golf course using your own golf ball. That's another thing that would help. But if you don't have access to technology like that, then what you need to do is when you go play on the golf course, let's say that you're 100 yards away, and let's say that you use your 9-iron and you hit a really solid shot. Not your best shot, but not your worst shot, but just a solid shot. And let's say the ball carries to the front of the green. What I would do is I would walk from where I hit my shot. I would tell, if I'm riding in the cart, I would tell my partner, you take the cart, I'm going to mark this off. And try to walk to your divot, your ball mark. Try to find your ball mark and walk to that and get the distance so that you know, okay, when I hit a 9-iron properly, even though my ball went 100 yards, it only carried 90 yards or carried 95 yards, whatever the situation. That's a simple way to learn your carry distance without the technology. Now, it's easier with the technology, but even if you don't have the technology, that's something that you can all do when you're practicing. And then obviously, like John was saying, hitting to targets, knowing, like when you get to a driving range, if you don't know and you don't have a rangefinders obviously make it a lot easier than, again, when I was a kid growing up, no one had those devices. That's a great way so that you go laser and you know, okay, to that first 10, it's 60 yards or whatever the situation, so that when you're hitting to it, you can start getting an idea, wow, my sand wedge, goes too far, or my lob wedge doesn't go far enough. So you start understanding that it's how far your ball is carrying to the target, not where it ends up. That's the main thing. Yeah,
and there's a lot of for golfers. Obviously, if you're playing, once in a blue moon, you may not want to go this route. But if you're somebody that's playing with any sort of regularity, there's a lot of personal launch monitors and or rangefinders now that you can get that are very reasonably priced, and it's worth the investment because you can do that yourself. Again, if you're somebody that's not necessarily taking lessons or you're not taking very many lessons, certainly I agree with you. I think going and getting your coach to pull something out and using that is great. But you can actually do it now when you're practicing on your own. There's a lot of great products out there, and it's just a matter of doing a little bit of research. All right, Mr. Hughes, we're going to come back to you. And here's another area of the game that I think is going to help people understand and it really falls into sort of decision-making. I think you want to take trouble out of play. I think whenever there's a possibility that a ball can either get in the water or out of bounds, take that possibility out by maybe laying up or some other option. John sort of alluded to that. What are your thoughts here? And then I'm also going to add into the mix, if you get yourself in a situation where you actually hit it in trouble, example, into the trees, there's some other options besides just trying to weave it through a thick pine forest. Maybe you might want to just do something else, and I'll get you to touch on some examples of things that you could do. So talk about that. What do we need to do if find ourselves in trouble or potential trouble? Maybe some options that you might want to throw out there for people to consider.
So going back to the statement you made right off the bat is how do you change your attitude? How do you change your thinking? And this right away is off the tee or in the middle of the fairway where you must change your thinking. What you're talking about is the possibility of making a big number. And most big numbers at that skill level are made due to penalties. We walked right into a trap by hitting it OB or hitting it into a hazard. I think overall you can think of, we've touched on 2 out of the 3 rules and or guidelines I give my clients. A, eliminate the big numbers and penalties. Number 2, keep yourself out of trouble, period, which goes back to no man's land. We'll probably touch on the 3rd one here in a little bit, or already have with putting. So when it comes to penalties in general, how do you avoid that? Well, John just talked about carry distance, but if you really map out carry distance, you probably have what's called a grouping area. If you hit 10 shots, what does that circle or oval look like from the longest to the shortest shot and to the 2 widest shots? And that's your grouping. And have you practiced enough to understand that you have a consistent grouping? Well, that consistent grouping also is relative to your consistent ball flight, whether it's draw, fade, slice, it doesn't matter, high, low. Are you playing with that consistency, and are you geometrically allowing that grouping to have a better chance of falling where you want the ball to fall? And that's what most people are not thinking of, and that is why a lot of penalties, OB, in penalty areas happen. Related to, okay, I'm not in a penalty area, but I'm in an area that I've got some trouble. I've got to keep it low under some branches. I've got pine straw. I'm in a barren lie, whatever the case may be. Let's take her medicine. A long time ago, I came up with a couple of phrases: keep par in play. Well, if your personal par is bogey, in this case, you're laying there in 2, you obviously have to plan out 3 shots. Well, what most people do is try to avoid the planning and just hit the hero shot. Where if they took their time and said, okay, this 3rd shot, which, by the way, I believe is the most important shot in golf on any hole, is the 3rd one, where if you put yourself back into play and you allowed yourself 2 more strokes, whether it's a chip and a putt, 2 putts, whatever it is, to make your bogey, you're going to end up taking your medicine and getting better sooner than trying to be the hero. You're probably going to add into those bigger numbers by what I call stupid mistakes. But are you setting up and making a good setup based on a good decision to keep your personal par in play? It's one thing to decide to do it. It's another thing to actually set up to allow it to happen. And when you're doing those 2 things, even poor performances get camouflaged a bit. And in that camouflaging, someone may say, hey, Ted, you hit a great shot, but deep down in your heart, you didn't. At the end of the day, that person's recognizing you made a great decision and you executed, and now you have a chance of saving par or saving your personal par. So it is changing thought. It is changing how you go about playing the game, keeping one number in mind while understanding there's several other numbers that add up to that last one. Where are you in relation to that last one, and in regards to where you lie on the golf course? And how do you play safely enough, not aggressively, but not ultra-conservatively? You play aggressively enough where that possibility of the bogey is still a possibility.
Yeah, well said. And I think you're exactly right. It comes down to a decision. It comes down to a thought process of what do I need to do to avoid those big numbers. And Decker, I'm going to come to you on this one here. I was watching something on the Golf Channel recently, and I don't recall the player's name, but he was playing with the pros, if you will. I think it was the segment, and he took 3 shots. Same hole, same distance, but he did it from the perspective of 3 different types of players. So as an example, and I want to get your thoughts on this, his higher handicap player, he chose one option. Maybe a more moderate player, he chose another option, and then obviously the better player. It's the same distance, but he factored in there was, in this particular case, there was a creek running in front of the green. He had a 165-yard shot, and there was 3 different ways to play this. And I think this is where a lot of, and I'm going to finish what he did in a second here. I'm just sort of want to set things up, but he set it up in such a way so that depending on which category you fall into, in other words, you have to know your game, is how you're going to decide how you're going to handle this. So in this particular case, what he did was for the higher handicap, he said, I know it's 165 yards to get over. I'm not real confident I can carry the trouble or potential trouble. So he said, what I'm going to suggest to you is that you lay up before the trouble so that way you have a short pitch into the green, which is more likely. The next player that was a little bit better, he used an example, and I know I can carry the trouble, but to go for the pin based on where it is not smart. So I'm going to play for the fat of the green. And obviously, if it comes off, depending on the shot shape I'm hitting, I might find myself, might end up being close to the pin. But at least I know I'm not going to get into trouble. And then obviously the better player, I can be a little bit more aggressive and go for it. So this is something here that a lot of average players don't know what decision to make. So if you were out on the course with a student, what do you want them to ask themselves first? What's the conversation you want them to have in their head? If they were faced with a situation similar to this, you can create whatever scenario you want for purpose of demonstration. But what's the conversation you want them to have before they actually take the shot?
Well, the first thing that I want them to do is ask themselves, where can I not go? So that could be short, it could be right, it could be left, it could be long, or it could be all the above. So that's the first thing. Once I know where I don't want to go, then I try to figure out where I do want to go. So in the situation of a player who is trying to break 90, let's say that they've hit their tee shot out there and they've got this distance, 165 yards, and they're going over water, but they don't feel comfortable. What I would want them to do is lay up to a yardage or lay back to a yardage where they can have a full shot into the pin. What I don't want them to do is to try to always lay it up close to the trouble. Like Nicholas used to always say, if you're going to lay up, lay up. And what he would say is you lay back. And the reason you lay back is you want to have a full shot. You don't want to be caught in, like John was talking about, that no man's land, because it's going to do you no good to hit a 120-yard shot and have a 45-yard shot over water. Even a tour player is not going to like that. So what you want to do is, in that situation is you may have to check your ego at the door, but if you hit a 65-yard layup and give yourself that 100-yard shot into the pin, now you can be aggressive. Now you can go more, and aggressive is a relative term, but now you can go more for the middle of the green and then go from there. Because remember, your goal, you've already got a shot to play with. You've given yourself, it's a par 4, but you've got an extra shot. So that layup is essentially that shot. And it puts you in a much better, because I guarantee you, everyone, if I gave them a choice, would you rather be 165 yards from the pin or would you rather be 100 yards from the pin? Everyone's going to say 100. I don't know anyone that would say I'd rather be 165 yards. So you just have to look at that as part of your drive, that extra shot. And that's where you're using your strokes wisely. What you don't want to do is waste your strokes hitting into the penalty areas. That's when you waste your strokes. When you try to hit shots you're not capable of doing, now you have to use one of those shots that you've given yourself before you play, and unfortunately, it's a waste. You're not gaining anything. So, and most likely, if you hit it into the penalty area, short of the green, you still have to hit a very difficult shot over the water. So I think having a go-to yardage, and I stress this with all of my students, you want to have at least one. When I was playing on the mini tours, I had 2 go-to yardages. One was 75 and one was 95. So if I was ever on a par 5 and I was laying up, I would try to lay up to those 2 yardages. Or if I drove it into the heavy rough and I couldn't get it to the green, I would lay it up to those 2 yardages. I was always trying to find those yardages when I was in trouble or when I was laying up on a par 5. And everyone's different. A lot of it depends on the wedges that you have in your bag. But I recommend that the listeners out there get with their PGA golf professional and have a lesson on figuring out your go-to yardages. Where are you really good? Like John was talking about the the groupings of the balls. Like, where is that grouping the best? Because it's different for every player. Every player has, you know, I've seen players that do better with a pitching wedge than they do with a sand wedge. I don't know why, but they do. So whatever you have the most confidence in, whatever you feel the like will give you the best opportunity to hit an aggressive shot and be able to carry it a consistent distance. That's what you want to know, is that go-to yardage.
Yeah, and again, it goes to really proper planning in how you're going to approach the course. And if you're fortunate enough that you're playing a course this season that you maybe you're a member, or it's a track that you play quite often, you're already familiar with sort of the lay of the land, so it makes it a little bit easier. If you're going to a new course, it's a little bit more difficult. There's a little bit more research involved. But if you're playing somewhere that you play quite often, you already know where the trouble is, and you already know the distances, essentially, that you're going to be faced with. So I think it's all about building a strategy. And I think, Mr. Hughes, I think the other thing, too, is you want to choose, I believe, consistency over distance. I mean, it's great if you can hit a good distance with your clubs, but sometimes you might need to, depending on the circumstance, you might need to club down or even use a three-quarter swing, maybe the bump and run, as John had mentioned. And sometimes it may not be 100% of your power, maybe 70%. In other words, doing what it takes to be consistent as opposed to focusing on just distance all the time, because obviously your accuracy is going to improve. So, and things that you want to make sure that you're working on is your grip and, of course, your setup to be consistent. But talk about a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, some of the things I just mentioned. You know, again, you want to be able to hit some full shots, but sometimes you have to hit half shots, or you have to, swing at a less power, because you don't want to be all over the course, and sometimes swinging a little easier is going to help with your accuracy. So give us an idea. Talk a little bit about that, if you wouldn't mind.
Ted, you must have been a fly that sat on top of the golf cart the past 2 days as I was coaching. It's uncanny what you're talking about. Let me preface something right up front. You only have 100% worth of energy. Physics, biophysics, it doesn't matter. You have 100% worth of energy. And if you're swinging at 100%, or what you think is more, every shot, does your brain have any energy to understand what you just did? Do your eyes have any energy to evaluate what you just did? So just from that basic definition, should you be swinging at 100%? No way. No way. And there's some great stories of Davis Love Jr. and Davis Love while he was trying to make his first win happen on the PGA Tour, swinging at 80%. If you can find that in a couple of books, I highly recommend that people read that. At the end of the day, hitting knockdown shots, hitting shots that you can feel in control of, is going to pay big dividends. It does start with setup. Is your setup correct so you can stay balanced? At the end of the day, if you're swinging at 100% and can't remain balanced, your equilibrium is automatically programmed to slow you down so you don't fall over. But that process of slowing down is going to sacrifice the integrity of a square face at impact, and therefore leading to the wide dispersion patterns you're experiencing. It's my firm belief that people break in 90 when they learn to control the face of the golf club, which requires less effort than 100%. They start understanding what their true swing is actually going to be. The old question of how do they make it look so smooth? Why does Fred Couples look so silky smooth? Why does this person hit it 400 yards, yet they look like they're only swinging for 100? It's because they remain in balance. They remain in a position where they can keep the club in a relatively square position, but it's over hundreds, if not thousands and tens of thousands of repetitions. But the real key here is, how can your body understand the difference in feeling between what you're doing now versus what you'd like to do. And what that requires is that you move slowly. What a lot of people fail to recognize or just totally ignore is that from the time we're born, we learn new movement patterns slowly. Think of if you've had children. Your children don't just get up and start running. They fall. You're trying to learn their balance. You're trying to develop the equilibrium skills needed just to make 2 steps, 3 steps, 5 steps happen. And before you know it, they're running. The same thing happens when you're trying to develop a new movement pattern, not a change in your swing, not this. There's too many negativities out there. Let's call it for what it is. You're trying to learn a new movement pattern, and that's going to require that you swing slowly. As per on the course and application on the course, if you feel like you're swinging out of your shoes and you're about to fall over, that is a big red flag that maybe you should slow down. Slowing down doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to hit it as far. It will mean that you're probably more relaxed, and by nature, maybe your wrists uncock faster and actually create more swing speed versus being tense and slowing things down because you're out of balance. The idea of hitting is that less is more is an absolute in golf. And it is a very quick way. If you swallow it whole, if you wrap your arms around it and say, you know what, I'm going to adapt this and I'm going to play this way for a month, you're going to surprise yourself at the quality shots you hit. But most surprising for you is how you'll start feeling a very good balanced movement pattern that allows you to reach your potential.
Yeah, well said. And you know, the thing that a lot of players don't understand is a great way to introduce tension into the body is to try to really step on it. And that doesn't mean that you can't increase your power a little bit. You know, if you're typically swinging, as you mentioned earlier, you know, Davis Love, for a while was, sort of swinging at 80%. If you need a little bit extra, you can do that. But you're right. If you're coming out of your boots, figuratively speaking, every time, and you're not staying within balance, I always, test that with my students over the years, and that is if they can't remain in balance, and I'll make them hold the finished position longer than what typically they would need to see whether or not they're in balance. Because if they're not in balance, they'll always either fall off to the side or they'll fall back on their trail foot. And when I get them to slow down, then they're able to stay in balance. And the other thing, too, is what people, again, don't realize is when you try to really, really force the shot and try to swing as fast as you can, because that's what they've been taught to do in the past, more often than not, you'll see the tension building up in their forearms and in their upper body. And ultimately what they end up doing is not hitting it further, but hitting it offline because their body is so tense it can't naturally swing. So some great points there, Mr. Hughes, as always. And guys, you've done a great job. And I think obviously just to sort of recap on some things, definitely you want to get help from your teacher professional. What are your common mishits? Maybe you need help fixing maybe you're hitting your shots fat, maybe you're pushing or pulling your shot. So those are things that you really want to do. If you've got some good shots in the bag, certainly you need to keep those tuned up in that, but those are not things that you have to spend all of your time on. You want to focus on the areas, whether it be a knockdown shot, whatever it is, knowing your distances. These are things that you want to, if you want to break 90 and you want to do it consistently, then you need to understand the distance that you're hitting, your carry distance that you're hitting each of your clubs, and certainly that pattern, as John had pointed out. And very quickly, I'm going to wrap up with I think can be, and again, there's always room for modification, but I want to get your thoughts, both of you, to give your thoughts on this. Sort of a practice plan, if you will. And this covers all the areas: putting, chipping, pitching, and so forth. So some things that I recommend to keep it simple. And again, you can adjust whatever numbers depending on your schedule. Some things you might even be able to do at home depending on your circumstances. But starting off with putting, I always like to get students to hit 4-foot putts and hold them out a certain number of them. Maybe they can do it once a week, and it might be 30 4-foot putts I want them to hole. And if they can't hold them consistently, then I want them to repeat that if they have the time. The other one is lag putts, maybe 20, 25-foot lag putts. And, again, I want them to get it within, a reasonable distance around the hole consistently, just so they get the feel of the speed and the distance of their putts. Chipping, again, maybe it might be a 15-yard chip. Again, getting it in whatever design, whether it's the 6 feet that you want to use, or if you have something, as John mentioned earlier, be a little bit more focused on things, that's fine. But you want to focus on, and again, it might be 25, 15-yard chips that you want to work on every week. Pitching, the same thing. Maybe it's going to be 50-yard, 60-yard, 70-yard pitch shots that you want to work on. Again, maybe it might be 25 in each of those categories. Bunkers, the same thing. You want to get maybe 20, 30 bunker shots you want to get, just general bunker shots. You don't have to do anything fancy. Just getting it out the first time. A lot of players that can't break 90, sometimes it takes them 2 shots to get it out of the bunker, so focus on that. Irons and or your hybrids as well. A lot of people have hybrids in their clubs. I recommend half a bucket. If you're going to get a full bucket, half a bucket per week of that full bucket to determine your distances, at least a half a bucket. And then obviously all of your clubs, again, the other half you want to be focusing on every week. Practice your perfect grip and your setup. Always practice. Nicholas, that was one thing that he always talked about in Golf My Way, is he always said every season when he came out is he wanted to focus on making sure that he was working on his grip and his setup, that they were sound every single season when he went out, and that's something to practice on. Misses, if you're making a lot of misses, I recommend getting your swing analyzed by a professional to determine cause and determine at-home practice drills that can be helped to fix some of those misses, and obviously practice daily. I believe in getting your swing recorded at least once or twice at the beginning of the season, just to see where you're at, and then obviously throughout, depending on what your coach tells you. What are your thoughts here about a practice plan, some of the suggestions I've made? Do you have some others that you want to add? I'm going to start with Mr. Decker, and then Mr. Hughes, I'm going to let you wrap up.
Well, Ted, I mean, you laid out a lot of good stuff there. For me, I always stress to my students, really, no matter whether they're an advanced player or a beginner, there's 3 areas that you really want to focus on. Number one is you want to focus on driving. So you want to work on your driver or your 3-wood, whatever you tee off with. You want to work on your wedges, and you want to work on your putting. Those are the 3 areas. If you will focus the majority of your practice time on those 3 areas, you will cover the majority of shots that you're going to have on a golf course. From a percentage standpoint, let's face it, your putting, I mean, you're going to, if you 2-putt every hole, I mean, that's 36 putts right there. I mean, it's 36 times you're going to use that club. So you're going to use the putter more than any club. The average person who's shooting right around 90, they're not going to hit a green in regulation, so they're going to need to have a wedge shot or a bump and run shot, some sort of shot around the green that they can rely on. And then a tee shot. I mean, it's statistically proven that if you can hit the ball farther and you can get it, you have to get it in play, but it makes the game a lot easier. So, making sure that you have a good driver that's fit for you, making sure that you have a shot that you can get started with. And it may not be a driver. It may be a 3-wood. So those are the 3 areas: your driving, your wedges, and your putting that I stress to all my students. And if you will you could spend 20 minutes on each of those, and in 1 hour you've covered probably 70% of the shots that you're going to have in a round of golf. So that's my advice. Well said.
And Mr. Hughes, what are your thoughts? Any comments on what I laid out? Anything maybe differently you'd like to do? Give us your thoughts.
All great ideas from both you and John. As everybody on this call knows, I write the milestone column for Golf Tips. And what I'm always trying to focus on when I'm providing readers, subscribers to Breaking 90 are 3 main points: eliminate penalties, eliminate big numbers, and eliminate 3 putts. And I think if you were to look at the content over the past 2 or 3 years of that article at the Breaking 90 milestone, most of it surrounds that. How do you eliminate doubles and big numbers? It's just better decisions and better setup, and following through, not giving in to your ego, not giving in to the hero shot, not giving in to the lustfulness of, wow, I hit this shot once, can I do it again? If you're truly, truly interested in breaking 90, this is where you're going to have to start getting some discipline within yourself. And you mentioned a lot of the smaller details of discipline to breaking 90. Mm-hmm. And then breaking 3 putts. John, both you and John broke it down really well. Can you control your distances? I actually start with, can you hit a straight putt? Because a lot of people who can't control their distances have no clue how to hit a putt straight. And when you can learn to hit a putt straight and then understand in what direction to aim that straight putt in, a lot of times you can control the length of your putt, because let's face it, probably 95% of the reason you 3-putt is because your first putt never got close enough to the hole for you to make the second one, which is where that 3 to 5 foot range is so incredibly important. The ability to build confidence within that zone provides you the opportunity to take pressure off of every other part of your game. Because if you're sitting back on a tee or with an approach shot or even a chip shot, and the only way you believe you're going to make it is to be right on top of the hole, then you're going to have a lot of problems. And breaking 90 is going to become even more distant. I think if you break it down into those 3, eliminate the doubles, eliminate the big holes, the big numbers by making better decisions, and eliminate 3 putts and pick your way of doing it. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. As John said, everybody's different. Pick the way that's going to get you there, not the quickest, but the most efficient, and you'll break 90 a lot more often than you realize.
Exactly. And this is really just, everybody has a different approach. Even every teaching professional has a different way of helping their students to accomplish that. But these are just some general guides that you can follow. You're certainly going to have success if you do these. You may want to modify them, as John had mentioned, some things differently that he might do. That's okay. Everybody's different. Every coach is different. But if you have a general guide to follow, I think you're going to be successful. But again, you have to be willing to be committal to a certain point. One thing that we didn't touch on tonight, which I think is important, we're going to get into it in a discussion a little bit, or we'll add it to a discussion at a later date. But and that is learning and understanding how to read greens, because you'd be surprised how many people lose strokes on the putting surface, not because so much that their stroke is bad, but they don't know how to read the green. I've seen people hit a beautiful stroke, get the right distance, and they're way off target because they didn't learn to read the green and know where the putt actually has to be going to. So we're going to talk about that, because that's something, too, that a lot of high handicappers, particularly a lot of our amateur golfers, need some help with. So we'll talk about that another time. But I want to thank you guys, as always, for doing a great job and unpacking our discussion. As I always do, give each of you an opportunity to share if there's something you want to share, and let the folks know if they want to reach out, the best way to do that. Mr. Decker, we'll go with you, and then Mr. Hughes will wrap up with you.
Well, Ted, once again, thank you for having us on the show tonight, and thank you for all that you do to give us a platform, and we love the opportunity. And, John, as always, I enjoyed coming on with you. I always learn something every time I'm on with you, so you did a great job tonight. For the listeners out there, I have a new website that just came out in January. It's simply called deckergolf.com. So if you go to deckergolf.com, you'll see all my videos. I have broken down into full swing, pitching, putting, chipping, bunker, course management, golf fitness. Every day I'm kind of putting new videos up there. I've got almost 200 as we speak. So, and there'll be more to come. So if you want to check that out, I appreciate it. Also, you can go to, if you want to follow me on social media, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. My book, Golf is My Life, Glorifying God Through the Game, it's a Christian golf book. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart websites. You can order the book through those. And I also have an audio book that's available on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. And I'm available for public speaking if you ever looking for a speaker to come in and maybe a charity golf event or any kind of event like that, just feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to come to your area. But once again, Ted, thank you. And, John, have a great evening.
All right, appreciate it. And Mr. Hughes.
As I've always said, it's easy to get a hold of me at John Hughes, hashtag John Hughes Golf. I designed it easy so you can find me easy. Ted, thanks as always. John, thanks as always. What I'm hoping people will see in the next coming months from me is as I expand to a second facility and do some retreat schools at the Macklemore here in another couple of weeks, a lot more video content that's going to help you with that. And I absolutely implore people, subscribe to the magazine, subscribe to Golf Tips Magazine. Both John and I love what we do and love the content, putting the content together for you. Breaking 90, milestones, all the things that we do it to help you, the golfer, achieve your goals. And if there's something that we can help you with from a video or from a written content standpoint of view, by all means, reach out. We're here to help you.
Well said. Again, thank you both for all that you do, and I appreciate you always giving of your time here coming on the show, and I look forward to you guys next month here on the Coach's Corner panel. Have a great rest of your evening and a great weekend, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Ted.
All right, that was John Hughes and John Decker joining me on the Coach's Corner panel. Before I bring out my special guest this evening, Kelly O'Donnell, and I'll introduce him in a second, we're going to take a quick message from Golf Tips Magazine.
The following ad is sponsored by Golf Tips Magazine.
Are you tired of being short off the tee? And what about those 3 putts? Forget about it. It's time you got serious about your game. Golf Tips, the most in-depth magazine in the industry. For over 30 years, Golf Tips has delivered expert content such as the latest golf instruction from America's top pros, simple-to-follow practice and game improvement drills, fitness and mental game tips, equipment, training aids, accessory, and apparel reviews, golf destinations and travel tips for every budget, and so much more. Don't miss a single issue. Go to golftipsmag.com and subscribe today.
All right, and again, you can go to golftipsmag.com and you can get it in a print version or digital or both, depending on what you want. Some people like to have both. They can have a print copy at home or at their office, and then they can take on the go a digital version of the magazine. It's very, very reasonably priced. There's 6 issues a year. We're winding down our season. Our next issue, or actually our recent issue, the July-August issue, has just gone to newsstands here in the last week, so you can get them at Barnes & Noble and Books A Million, or really any of the major book outlets here in the United States and Canada. And you can also, again, if you want the online version, you can subscribe to that as well. We're going to be working on, in fact, we're getting ready to work on the September-October issue, which will be coming together here in the next few weeks, and then we'll be getting that out to print as well. And then our final issue, which is usually one of our biggest issues of the year, that has a lot of equipment reviews, and our holiday gift guide comes out in the November-December issue, so we'll be getting lots of gift ideas ready for that. All right, very excited to be joined by once again by my special guest this evening, Kelly O'Donnell. He is the PGA Director of Golf Operations at the Nemacolin Resort up in Pennsylvania. He's also a seasoned golf professional with a background in sales, marketing, manufacturing, as well as private, public, and resort golf experiences. 7-time PGA Section Merchandiser of the Year and 2016 PGA National Merchandiser of the Year for resorts. He worked for Ben Hogan for 7 years and has mentored 30-plus future PGA professionals and instructors. Creative and out-of-the-box thinking for improving the guest and member experiences at wherever he's working. Right now is Nemacolin, surrounding the game of golf, which is a robust and resurgent industry. We're going to talk a little bit about that and more. Please welcome my very special guest this evening, Kelly O'Donnell. Good evening,
Hi,
Kelly.
Ted.
Welcome to the show. I'm doing very well.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you back. You were with me. I was just, before we went on, or before I went on the air tonight, I was looking to say I knew you had been on before, and you were back in October, I think October 7th. You were on the show, and glad to have you come back for 2022.
Well, thank you. Right.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. So
we're excited.
Let me. I appreciate it. So let me ask you first and foremost, just for those that may be tuning in for the first time and maybe didn't catch the last time, give us just an idea. I like to do this particularly with guests either the first time or first couple times on their show until the audience gets a little familiar with them. Give us an idea of how you got into golf. Not so much in the industry, you can talk about that as well, but what sort of led you down the path of, hey, I want to play this great game? How did you get started?
Oh, this is just so timely and everything because I just I've been dealing with a lot of family issues, and I just lost my father last week. So it's but he was 91, had a great life, but he actually introduced me to golf when I was 7. So he was a long time minister, and would take me on his days off when I was young to go play the little 9-hole course. We were up in Rogers, Arkansas, John Daly territory up there, and I told John about that story as well. But in Rogers at the time, back in the early 60s, there was this new kind of hardware convenience store opening up, and it was called Walmart. And look where they are today. So the first Walmart store ever from Sam Walton was in Rogers, Arkansas. So my first set of clubs was a set of Bob Rosbergs from the Walmart there, and I wish I still had them today because I remember dragging them around and just wearing out a hole in the bottom of my bag because I felt it was so heavy, but it had 4 clubs in it. But, not only was it great to spend time with my father, because he's busy, dealing with, the ministry and all his constituents, but, it was really a good bonding time and, of course, loving to be outside as well. And there just grew a fondness for the game, how you can't really blame anybody else but yourself for what goes on, and just a good core amount of people that you meet through the game. And I still speak to that this day, that you meet so many outstanding people that not only they understand the great feeling hitting a drive perfectly, but also when you can 3-putt from 5 feet. So, we all share that feeling that we have. So I grew from there. My grandfather turned out to be a longtime childhood friend of Harvey Pinnock. And so I got to take some lessons from Mr. Pinnock when I was in high school as well, and just a very, very unassuming man. And, I think a great tribute to Mr. Pinnock was, if you look at two of his greatest students were Tom Kite and Crenshaw, both players, both major champions, but completely different personalities and the way they approached the game. And what Harvey would do with them was send Tom to the short game area and work on wedges and hit some balls on the range. And he said, Ben, you just go play. And that kind of spoke to, and that you could see their whole career became, I think, Tom Kite was the guy who was pulled a long iron out, and he was the first guy that I can remember that actually put 3 wedges in his bag. So I think, just the little things that Mr. Pinnock did was just fascinated me with that. And I'm trying to remember this day what he really helped me with, and he really didn't say much of anything because every time I went to see him, I stayed so focused because, you want to impress your teacher, right? So I always did it pretty well when I was with him. But
obviously he presented a good aura.
Right, he did, absolutely, and just not intimidating at all. But and so I cherish all those times as well. And then when I got into college, I really felt like I wanted to become a minister because that was in the family. But then after one semester of seminary, I just didn't feel like that was the right thing. And my dad's brother had a good friend who was a golf professional looking for an assistant pro, and so I started working with him and never looked back.
Let me first say my deepest condolences to not only yourself but to the rest of your family as well at your loss. I'm very sorry to hear that, and I'm glad that he was able to be, as active in your life as he was, and be able to not only mentor you but to introduce you to this game, which has obviously served you well. And I know you have, I'm sure, a lot of fond memories of those days, and something
Absolutely.
that you'll be able to carry. And, we're very similar in a lot of ways. My father did something very similar, introduced me to the game about the same age, about 7. I think pretty much did the same trek as you did, as I wore a hole in the back of my bag. I think I had a couple more clubs. I might have had six in there, but and I was pretty tall player. Too. But I just, I don't even remember to be honest, it's been so long. I don't even remember the first set of clubs I had. I know there were some cut downs or knockdowns or whatever we used to call them of an old set that my dad had, but I think it's always interesting, because what I find more often than not with a lot of my fellow professionals and that is a very similar story, that once they got introduced, whether it be, their father, or some case it was an uncle or a grandfather that got them in, once they kind of got bitten by the bug, as we refer to, there was no turning back. Now whether they meandered on to become a great player or a teacher professional, or a little of both, or just out to have fun, it's always interesting to hear a little bit about their journeys. And we're going to get to Nemacolin in a second, but I wanted to ask you, as we transition into that part of the discussion, obviously we've all gone through a very difficult time over the last couple of years with this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to keep talking about it. But one of the things
it's still here. It's still very relative. Yeah. So we still need to talk about it.
Right. But what was really interesting to me, and I don't think really a lot of people saw this happening in the very early stages of it, is again, golf being the game it is, outdoors and so forth, and social distancing and all that kind of stuff. Received an incredible resurgence of the game. I mean, not only players that hadn't been out for a while, but a lot of new players. And I'm sure you guys have witnessed this at your facility, over the last couple of years, which has been both a blessing and sometimes a bit of a curse, because most of the pros I've talked to over the last year or so are so busy that they had to finagle schedules and things. So, obviously I'm kid when I say it's a curse, but it obviously has made them a lot busier, and the resorts are happy, I'm sure. So when you see, especially, forget about the ones that have, played for a number of years that maybe had gotten out of it for one reason or another coming back. That's obviously exciting in itself. But you're seeing a lot of new people for the first time. What do you try to do, especially if they're not from a golfing family, they're never picked up a golf club in their life, they haven't got the first, clue as to what even to ask about. What do you try to do at Nemacolin to really sort of welcome them in and say, here, we're going to help guide you to what we feel, or what do you do? Do you guide them at all, or do you just say, hey, the doors are open, come on in, we're going to do what we can to serve you? What's the approach that you guys have taken for new golfers? And I mean new golfers.
I mean like real new golfers, yes. I think, probably the main thing that happened after I got here a little over a year ago in February is they wanted to renovate our golf academy, which was an original David Ledbetter back in the 90s, but it was really in disrepair and needed some help, but it had great bones, as I tell people. And so got in there, and it had a big covered porch, so we completely gutted the thing. It didn't have air conditioning, it didn't have heat, and so I was looking at something for us, because we're so seasonal at Nemacolin, where I could get some strong teaching professionals and make it to where, even in the off season, as we speak, where you can't get out on the grass, at least keep them active and keep them teaching, because the hotel is open year-round, so if we can get some golfers, especially new ones, in the off-season, this would be a great opportunity for us. So we have 4 16-foot bays. I've got a 900-square-foot putting room, and we enclose the patio to where we have some nice seating. So, I don't like using the term Top Golf, but it has that feel that we can do a lot of individual instruction, but also we'll do dinners for 30 to 40 to 50 people in there. It's a great space. And so all our bays, we can do simulated games. You can work on the range if you want. You can play both our golf courses and 130 other ones because we have TrackMan there. But we also, every one of them also open up to the grass as well. So we can go end to end, end out, and you can work or play. And the one things I've found out in doing so is, what is one of the main things that just scares so many new people to golf is they're so afraid to go to a driving range. And, I have other people look at them. But, when you get inside, it's more intimate, and you kind of feel like there's nobody really watching you if you're doing it in a bay indoors. So we've really captured a lot of people that want to play golf just by coming to an event or, one of our open houses that we'll have every month at the Golf Academy, especially on really busy weekends. And just, we'll have cocktails and appetizers and come on over and see what the Academy is like. And we usually capture, 10 to 20% of the people there really become interested in golf and want to start playing. And I love that. Mm-hmm. That space is paying back not only the game but to us as an operator tenfold at least.
Yeah, and that's what you want. You want to have that experience for them. So when you think back or you look back over your career, because you've been doing this for a while now, so you've seen all types of golfers and that. What's different? What's really different? I mean, you pointed out a couple of things that there's a little bit of apprehension about going out to the driving range because they don't want people watching them and that. And listen, who isn't a little bit apprehensive sometimes? If you're a little rusty or if you haven't played in a while.
Right.
What's different about the golfers, and I'm talking about the new golfers, not the ones that have maybe stopped for a year or something. The new golfers, what's different about them? What are you noticing? What is it they're after? And I want to throw something in here, and I want to get your thoughts to see if we're sort of on the same page. What I hear them saying to me is they're looking for not just a typical golf experience, they're looking for a golf plus experience. So they're looking for other things than just, walking the 18 or whatever. There's other things. Is that what you're hearing from them? Give me your thoughts on in response to that, or are you seeing or hearing something different?
No, I think you've hit on it, and I've said not only with what COVID's done, because the industry was so flat for so many years, and thanks to whether you love it or hate it or just kind of put up with it, social media has really helped the game of golf become cool again. There's all these new manufacturers. There's swagger with a lot of these people that you see on there, guys and girls that do their own thing, and they've helped bust through just kind of that staunch old guard of what the game of golf is. And it's a game ultimately, and I always tell people that don't take it seriously. It's a game. So I think we're getting a lot of new golfers, not only that are interested in seeing it, and you see the resurgence in the younger players now. I love where the ladies tour is going, and look at the men's tour right now. All these young guys. I mean, we talked about what, like 5 to 10 years ago, you might have 3 to 5 guys who could win every week, and now we've got 20 to 30. I mean, it's really exciting to see. So the buzz is good. And so we're seeing those people coming out to Nemacolin, 36 holes, our Golf Academy, and a lot of other things to do that are buying the latest fashion and want to get the latest glove and what kind of new golf balls. And so it's just all really new to them. And, yeah, they know the frustration, but they also see it on TV because the guys and girls who do it for a living, they hit it in the water too. So I think it's just refreshing to see the resurgence and new people coming along. But yeah, their expectation is grander. Gosh, don't have the carts on the path. When it rains, and what are we going to do? And and the 5 and 6 hour rounds, we got to bust that up too. But that's problems we've always had. But I think if we have classes too, I really think a priority needs to be more classes on etiquette and pace of play before we even get them out playing by themselves. I really do.
Yeah, good luck with that.
I know.
Yeah, no,
I know. Forever the optimist, Dad.
Yeah, you're right. But and I just want to expand a little bit more on that. The reason why I asked that is, I've did an article recently in my magazine, Golf Tips magazine, and I talked about really what the millennial, particularly golfers, are looking for, and that's why I referenced the sort of the Golf Plus experience. They're looking more.
Sure.
They're not really interested in the typical country club feel. They don't care about that. They want, as I said, a Golf Plus experience. So they're looking at it, and again, I'm not trying to throw them out there, but because there's others now coming out in the field, but that Top Golf, they're looking for an entertainment value. So yeah, they want to go out there and they want to challenge themselves out in the golf course, but they want other things. They now you've got all these products like the Wingman and some of these other speakers that they can hook their Bluetooth through and listen to some tunes out there and get the yardages. And they're very tech driven. They're wanting to know their numbers. They're wanting to have all of these things. So how do you handle, because you're a resort, so obviously you're catering to some of the traditional golfers now, but you also at the same time recognize that, hey, some of us older guys are going to be, moving on down the pasture in a few years, so you've got to make way for a new crop of golfer. So are you guys changing some of your model in order to, you don't want to shovel away the existing clientele, but you've got to make way for the new generations of golfers? Are you trying to find a balancing act, if you will, I guess is the way to put it, to appease the traditional golfers, but at the same time offer something to the newer groups of golfers coming along? Are you doing things like that now, or is that something that you're working on doing over the next year, 2 years?
I don't really know. I always kind of, except for the rules of golf, really, I kind of buck tradition, and I'm always looking for the next best thing. What can we do? I've had Wingman in the shop for years, and of course we've got club cars that have the Bose speakers in them because, if somebody wants that, great. And, we've got several players that say, I don't want to hear any music. I got to get in my head and play the game, and that's fine. But so it is a constant, like a doctor, you got to know your patient. So I know everybody who's coming to Nemacolin, they're looking for that out-of-the-box experience. They're just wanting something that's off the charts, not only with golf, but everything else we offer. And so really our clientele is that. Even our members, they dress kind of wild. They're not your traditional club member, which I love as well. And, they've got a great opportunity here because I've got 36 holes of golf. And, I really like them to have a tee time, but they really don't need one with us for the most part. Even though we're celebrating our 35th anniversary this year, but there's still a lot of people out there. And I met some more, this past week that had, they've heard about Nemacolin, didn't know where it was, and finally had to get here. And I just love that. So we're still, bringing in new people all the time that just have not been to Southwest Pennsylvania. So, and
Nemacolin offers a variety of stay and play options too. I mean, you've got the beautiful chateau for somebody that likes maybe a little bit more of an elegant approach to things.
Yeah, and
then you've got some other
copy of the Ritz Hotel in Paris.
Right.
It is. It's crazy. Yeah.
So that's what I'm talking about.
You can have 24-hour butler service. It's it's off the charts every day. I laugh coming to work every day. It's just a great place.
and then you've got the, as an example, you've got the lodge, which is, again, a different experience. So, and that's what people are looking for, I think, nowadays, is they're looking for something different. And you guys kind of have the complete package. You offer, some challenging golf, of course, but you're also offering a variety of options if people want to, stay and play or whatever they want to do, or if they're local and they want to come in and visit. And of course, as you said, the members, of course, you want to always do things for them. But so you offer a variety. For somebody that's never been to Nemacolin, what do you want them? Obviously, you want them to have fun. You want them to enjoy their stay, and you're going to roll out the red carpet, as they say, particularly at the Chateau, but and butler service and all that kind of. What is the takeaway that you want them to have when they leave? What is it you want them running through their mind?
That they're ready to rebook and come back and see us and tell at least 10 of their friends. I mean, yeah, seriously, and it's almost to a person. That's the way it is. We're finally getting back into. I love group golf, and we've got a lot of groups that have rebooked. Especially June's going to be a big group golf month for us, and we've just got a lot of returning businesses that just love everything we do. They, from the food and the service, and just the accommodations to the golf, and just how we treat them. There's no great secret. We treat everybody here like you want to be treated. I mean, that's exactly been my mantra forever, and and I just always try to find quality apparel and everything else that with our logo on it that they will probably not find at their own club, and realize that I might have a new buyer for a new brand that they've never heard. So it's fun that way as well. But just to have people come off either one of the courses and go, wow, what an when they say experience, I think that's exactly what we're looking for. Because it truly is. You just can't, in the Allegheny Mountains, just where we are, it's just beautiful, especially late in the day. It's just an amazing place.
And you offer other amenities as well. Obviously, golf is certainly in the forefront, but you offer a spa and sort of a holistic healing center as well, fitness. So for those that are health conscious a little bit more than others that maybe, say, well, yeah, I want to go on a trip, but I still want to, do what I need to do to keep me, in good shape, you offer that as well. Maybe you could touch a little bit on that.
Yeah, our spa is spectacular. It's I think it's 3 stories, and it's also got just about an Olympic-sized pool in it, so it's always very busy. Of course, it's got the salon piece as well, but there's healing is big for everybody now, not only with the holistic healing center, but also the spa treatment itself, and more. We see the professional athletes have known this for years, and it's nice to see that for the everyday people, you can take advantage of that as well. We've got a cryo chamber, which I did that last month, and that was quite an interesting experience when you watch the thermostat go to minus 160, and you're like, am I going to live through this? But when you come out of that, I just felt incredible. And we have the red light therapy, which is really big right now as well. That's supposed to help a lot of your aches and pains, which I think is a great thing as well. And the Holistic Healing Center is right across from the golf shop. So we're really trying to, I'm working with our director of spa to really, do some packages that will either use the cryo and the red light for golfers right after they play and in between rounds. So that's critical for all of us, especially, for people like you and I that are really maturing, that after 18 holes we're like, wait a minute, that didn't hurt yesterday. And of course we've got 40 treatment rooms, so you can have the traditional spa workout as well, where you can have someone work on all your aches and pains. So that's never going to go away. Our spa is it's world class, and it's busier than the golf course right now. That's how good they're doing. So my goal is to catch her because they're doing so well over there. But we're right behind her because it's still raining. And I'm still waiting for spring, Ted.
Right.
It's been an interesting start to the year for us. I mean, it's lush, but our rough is like 3 to 4 inches right now. We are ready to have the U.S. Open here on either course because it's pretty incredible right now.
Well, and that's part and parcel. Yeah, you want a little bit of a summer to hurry up and roll around, but it's important. The reason why I brought it up is because I think it's important. I think when you have an experience like this, and hey, listen, I love going and playing some great golf, but I also want to have some other things available. Wherever I'm staying, I want to have other options of things to do. So that in conjunction with, I'm like you said, I'm going to go out. I'm getting long in the tooth as well. So, I was up. And I won't name names because I'm not going to take away from you guys. But I was up north a little further here recently, and walked 218 back to back, and I felt it. Boy, I wish I had the spot to go to. So, yeah, really. And I'm not used to doing that. The same way. So. But as somebody that enjoys this game, golf is fine and golf is fun, but you also want other things to do. And obviously, I know you offer some great dining. We'll touch on that a little bit. But you want other things to be there. Have some other adventures, for lack of better words. Tell us about the Peak.
Yeah, the Peak. We just opened it last year, so we've had skiing in the season and tubing, and so we came across an idea because we've had our pools were getting really busy, both at Falling Rock where the golf shop is, and also right in between the tavern and the spa. That pool was getting quite busy, so we came up with the idea of kind of a Vegas-style pool at the Peak, and it came out just amazing because we've got cabanas out there as well. But you've got great views of the mountains as well from there, and we've got a kind of a 2-level pool with a kind of a small, lazy river to it, but it's also heated, so even in wintertime you can hang out in there because I've seen probably 30 to 35 bodies in the hot tub. It's that big. And it's just a great entertaining space, not only summer but winter, because we heat all the tiles around the pool too. It's an amazing space, but it was something we really needed as, just a next step up for our guests to enjoy, especially in the summers, especially. But it has really been a pleasant surprise for us for the wintertime as well. I mean, you and I would not get out in that in the winter, but a lot of people do. And they're stocking caps and out there with a nice toddy, and they're enjoying in the hot tub. And we'll pull down the big screen TVs up on the stage because we'll do live music on the weekends there as well. We have a big stage, and we'll show football and other sports on there too. But it's a great venue. It turned out like they do everything else at Nemacolin. It just blows my mind just how grand and over the top we do it, and then everything's successful. I love it.
Well, and it goes to what I talked about earlier, and that is that sort of golf plus experience. You're golfing during obviously in the winter you're not, but there's other things to do, and people are looking for that. And you've got things like rope courses, you've got their climbing walls, so it's a very family friendly options as well. So if you want to bring the kids kind of thing, there's some things that they can do. You've got indoor axe throwing. So there's a lot of things. It's not just the golf.
Bowling,
there's other things. I mean, it's paintball and a few other things. So it's an overall experience for the resort members and guests to be able to come and do a lot of different things and not just and the reason why I say is typically in the past you go to a golf resort and you played golf, and some had spas, some didn't have spas, but it was very generic. It was very sort of run of the mill. But you guys have taken it a step further because you're recognizing, especially because you do have a shorter golf season, that, hey, we've got to find other ways of entertaining guests and members and things like that throughout the season. So here you've done that with the Peak. You've offered another option, and it's something that, again, you're going to draw in a different generation too, because they say, hey, this looks like fun. And they're crazy enough to be out in their caps and out, in the middle of winter where you and I are going to be sitting. Yeah, we're going to be sitting inside at the bar and, maybe looking out the window or something.
And laughing at them. Yes.
And laughing, exactly. But and saying, you wait 30 years, pal, but you know what I'm saying. So, but the idea is, all kidding aside, but the idea is you're now offering a more well-rounded experience when they come to Nemacolin than what traditionally they might have seen. Am I right?
Right, exactly. I mean, you really are. And, another testament of just what we think and how we do and how we can please our guests is just all the different options for food as well. I mean, Lautrec, which I really can't even describe what it is. It's over the top where you get those really fine. It's a 6-course experience, and, they'll pair wines with each course, and it's just an amazing experience. Of course, Rockwell's is our steakhouse. Aqueous, which is also in the Falling Rock Hotel, is really our seafood restaurant, and it's Five Diamond as well, and it's just and it appeases all the golfers too, because you really want to find a really nice meal after you eat. But we have people that just come stay with us because of the restaurants. I mean, that speaks a lot to our chef staff and our culinary team and just everything that we offer. And of course, the tavern's the sports bar. You can get a burger, fries, onion ring tower, whatever you want there as well. So we really cater to everybody. The Peak also has food as well. So, you and I can sit there and watch the people and laugh at them when they're out there in the hot tub. That's where we would be. But it's, I mean, and it's, most of our golfers, especially the young men who have a hankering for cigars, our cigar bar is unbelievable, and it's packed every weekend. It's an amazing space. Yeah. It looks like an old turn-of-the-century library, and it's just an amazing space. And they'll pair cigars and bourbons and other things like that. It's just the team at Nemacolin, they think of everything. And if we're constantly looking for what's the next great idea, and we get suggestions not only from staff or from our frequent guests, and possibly the next time that guest is here, we'll have what they wanted to see us have. And that's how they do things there. I just love it.
And the other thing, too, is, in addition to having so many different options of doing things and options of where to stay and what accommodations you want, it allows you to have a different experience each time. So maybe one time you might want to just, hang out at the lodge or and do certain activities. The next time when you rebook, maybe you're going to up your game a little bit, figuratively speaking, of course, and maybe stay at the chateau and have a little bit more, maybe a special occasion. You're going to use that. And I know that you have obviously the facilities to have big events and things like that going on. So, for people that maybe want to have that different experience, excuse me, they've got that option at Nemacolin. They can have a different experience every time.
Well, they do. We do a lot of conferences. Convention services is very strong here because we'll do a lot of companies will have their year-end celebrations and awards events and bring in key vendors, and it is perfect for that. I mean, it's truly a place that you want to come celebrate the past year you had, or if there was a buyout of something, and we cater to all that, which is so much fun.
Now, you mentioned earlier that, and correct me if I'm wrong, or unless I didn't hear you right, did you say this was year 35?
Yeah, 35 years. Mr. Hardy bought the property in 1987. So we're already working on something big for year 40 as well, and I can't even imagine what we're going to do for that. But year 35 this year, so that's That's a great feat, and they continue to grow. And there's nothing stagnant going on at our place at all. What is next?
Right. Well, and that's, that goes to the overall point that I was trying to make earlier is, I think one thing, not just the pandemic, but just in general, one thing that's happened, and you touched on this as well with social media, is that we're seeing really a new approach. I mean, golf, let's be honest, had stagnated for a long time. The traditionalists get out and play, and and that, but it really was not drawing a lot of new interest. In fact, if anything, people were getting out because for one reason or another, and so now it's had a new resurgence, and I'm sure you guys have noticed this in your neck of the woods as well. And partially, through the efforts of organizations like the LPGA and companies like Epson that have stepped up this year and taken on the tour there for these young girls coming into the game. The industry has seen a 33 to 35% increase of new golfers are young females, which was unheard of 20 years ago. So
you're exactly
I'm sure
right.
You're seeing that. Go ahead.
No, and like we talked about, just because there's excitement on the ladies tour, their majors are fantastic. All those young players that are coming up, and they're from all parts of the world. It's great. So I think that's had a huge influence on the young women that are starting to play. Oh, for sure. I mean, no doubt. I have the pleasure of interviewing a lot of the young girls coming off the Symetra tour, or coming into the the Epson tour now. I've got to keep remembering to say that. Right. But they're but Epson really stepped up this year, and this is their first year of 5, and we'll see where it goes on. But they come in and not only increase the purses for these young girls, trying to make their way to the LPGA, to the regular tour, but they actually went a step further and actually lowered the entrance fees to get into the events. And, that's great. So they're helping. Yeah, so they're not just throwing a bunch of money and saying, hey, we're going to plump up the one end. They're also making it so it's more affordable because let's be honest, it's, especially for the ones that don't have sponsors and things yet, it can be a pretty hefty chunk of change to get out there and play 15 to 20 events a year. Right. If you don't have a sponsor and you're not, coming from a wealthier background. So, so organizations like this are recognized. So golf seems to be drawing a new, fresh interest all the way around. And it sounds like to me, from what you've said tonight, that you guys really anticipate this and are taking steps to sort of embrace not just the new influx of new people, but just the different directions that golf is starting to take. And again, I'm not trying to dismiss the traditional golf, but there's new things happening as well, and you guys are obviously excited to be a part of that. And I think that's where the direction of the game hopefully is going to continue to go. And I think you guys have recognized that and are doing that. Am I right? Yes, you are. And, as I mentioned the academy earlier, we have a new golfer boot camp that we offer every Saturday and or Sunday. And we have quite a few participants. I've been so happy to see that. And then, our junior camps last year was okay, but this year they've all filled up. And it's members and guests. And, now that I think about it, because you touched on this, we are seeing more young girls, and I love that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot. I love it a lot. I mean, yeah, we see it not just on the tours and things like that, but we're seeing it, even at the local courses here. We're seeing. You go up on a Saturday morning, and it's amazing how many young girls are up there, and some of them are really good. I mean, it's not just, they're duffing around out in the driving range. Some of these young ladies are really good.
and they just really grappled
and polished
it. And
polite, and they're and so focused. I was not anywhere near that focused at that age, Ted.
No. Well, I had the pleasure of watching the LPGA Q series the last week rather in 2021 coming into the 2022 season, and I made a point for the whole week of going up and watching. I'm going to make this brief because I don't want to take your time, but watching them every morning go out on the range, and I saw more training aids. I saw on the putting surface, they were out there diligently working. And then, as the rounds progressed and we had some rough weather, they were right back out there again after their rounds working those same training aids coming out. And it was interesting. They were out there hitting ball after ball after ball, but with a purpose. And they were incredibly good and very diligent in their practice. And it was just very interesting to watch. And like you said, very focused. So, I'm excited about that as well as sort of a new freshness to the game.
I agree.
I think
for years too, have you not told? I've told our members for years, especially where their games are when they're 15 to 20 handicappers. I've told them, watch the LPGA Tour. That's going to be more your focus to your game than what the guys are doing now. You're never going to touch that, but you watch these women, driver, and they can hit all their hybrids like they're short irons. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, it is.
So I love where the ladies' tour is going. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and it's a more well-rounded game. They can certainly, don't get me wrong, they can get some distance too, but yeah, they're all about really, the finesse and using a lot of the clubs in the bag and not just 5 that we see often on the men's tour, and it's amazing with very little effort. I mean, I watched, and I shouldn't say this, but I watched one that was on the range one day. And she was just so incredibly accurate. I just wanted to go up and slap her one because I thought, I just can't believe it. And she barely swung the club, and it was just like darts. I mean, every ball was around the hole, the same distance, and she was very little effort. So, you're right. Watching them work on their game and practice, I would drive a busload of high handicappers up there and say, here. Sit here for an hour and watch these young ladies. So you're exactly right. So do you offer, I mean, obviously you're welcoming to everybody coming up there and that, but are you trying to tap into that as well by maybe offering, more clinics and things that are attracting some of the junior golfers in as well? What are some of the things that you're doing through the academy?
Yeah, we are. And, I through our director of instruction and our lead instructor, I push them and encourage them to, bring up, and they are working with a lot of local high school, junior college, and some collegiate players because that's important too, and especially with all the technology we have at the academy now, because that's the future. I mean, of getting better, and so they are working with quite a few pretty good little players from all around the region, and so that's, and it's really through word of mouth because Mike LaBella, our director of instruction, was named last year top 40 under 40, so he's got a lot of credibility with who he's worked with, so what he's done, and he's a product out of the Penn State PGM program, which is great. And so, I get over there a lot in the afternoons, and they're working with these young guys. I haven't seen them work with any young girls yet that I can think of, but it's young men, and they're just all like rubber bands. They hit it forever, straight, and I just can't watch them for very long because I have to leave.
I know. Yeah, I'm like you. Well, their time's coming too. And what's really nice is your facilities dog friendly, I see as well. So that's something. And again, that's becoming more and more important as people are traveling. You know, they don't want to leave.
Pets are family too, right?
That's right. So it's nice to see you adopting that as well. And I think
just
it's great.
Don't get them too close to the Bengal tigers that we have, because they might look at your little puppy as lunch.
Right, a little snack. Well, it sounds like it's a great time, and I'm looking forward to coming up at some point and checking it out.
Yes,
and
please.
For myself,
I think I told you that in October, and you still haven't made it yet.
Yes, I know. Well, the winter months, and I don't downhill ski anymore, so I don't do winter anymore.
Me
but
either.
We'll see if I can do it. But
you're
Kelly,
always
thank you
welcome,
very much, and I want to get you an opportunity to let the folks know if they want to get more information. What's the website they can go to, and anything else that you want to close out with as we wrap up?
It's quite simple. Go to Nemacolin.com, and we've also got a new newsletter that just went out today that kind of gives you a history of who we are and celebrating the 35 years. But, gosh, if we don't have the right experience for you and your family or your friends, by golly, we'll have it built the next time you come. I promise that. Right. We will.
Sure.
But, yeah, please come see us. I'm talking to you only, too.
I definitely will.
And all your friends.
I'm gonna certainly circulate the word around for sure. It looks like a great facility, and I always like to do something new, and I'll talk very nice to Kevin and Carl and see what they can work out for me. But Kelly, thank you very much for coming on. It's
my
a pleasure.
pleasure.
You're always welcome to come back, and don't wait until the 40th. We'll maybe have you back on again. At a later date, but come on, and when you've got some anything new that you want to promote, I'm always happy to have you on the show. But appreciate it, and again, my deepest condolences at your family's loss. And
thank you, Ted. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you, my friend. Have a good rest of your evening and a good weekend, and we'll talk to you next time here on Golf Talk Live.
You too. Great. Bye.
Right. Good night. All right, that was my very special guest, Kelly O'Donnell, PGA Director of Golf Operations at the Nemacolin Resort. And you can go to nemacolin.com, as he said, to get all the information. It's Nemacolin. That's nemacolin.com. A lot of great things to do. And as I mentioned, they're pet-friendly. So if little Fido wants to go and on the trip, they're welcome to attend as well. And just, as he said, keep them away from the Bengal tigers. But otherwise, they may not be coming home with you. But anyways, thank you for joining me here tonight on the show. Again, a special thanks to both John Hughes and John Decker, for doing a great job, as always, on the Coach's Corner panel. And again, my special guest this evening. I will be back next week with another great panel discussion and another interesting guest interview. I hope you join me. God bless everybody. Have a great week.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. We'd like to thank this week's Coach's Corner panel, and a special thank you to tonight's guest. Remember to join Ted every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central on Golf Talk Live. And be sure to follow Ted on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're interested in being a guest on Golf Talk Live, send Ted an email at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.